Tanya, welcome. Thank you for coming and sharing your screen.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, firstly, I just want to acknowledge elders, all the sacred items, all the family members of missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQIA plus people, survivors of gender, race, violence, including, welcoming our leadership and other community members as well. I want to also recognize and honor the loved ones that never made it home from residential school and who remain missing, and for those ones who are a product of and have survived a violent history of the impacts of loss of generational trauma that really sit heavy, in our minds, bodies, and spirits. So, with that being said, I'll introduce myself as well. Wabi Buje, Kwe Dijnakas, Wabisheshi Dotum, Anishinaabe, Kwe, Endau, Middle Missing Donjaba. Hello, my name is Tanya Debassige. My name that I received, my English name is White Lynx Woman, and I'm from the Martin clan. I'm Ojibwe Odawa from Middle Missing, which is Manitoulin Island. I was born and raised on my Anishinaabe territory within the Robinson Huron Treaty. I am a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, an auntie, a grandmother, and a granddaughter. I am a granddaughter of residential school survivors, and myself, I have attended Indian Day School in my formative years as well. I am the Liaison Program Coordinator with the Family Information Liaison Unit with the Ministry of Attorney General. I'd like to begin and to acknowledge I am in the greater city of Sudbury, which is located in the traditional territory of the Robinson Huron Treaty of 1850, and I'm on the traditional lands of Atikameksheng, Anishinaabeg, and Wanapitche. So a little bit that I'm going to be talking about is our program, the Family Information Liaison Unit. We provide specialized services to families of missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, boys, and two-spirited. Our units were established and work in parallel with the work of the National Inquiry into Missing, Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and FILUs are available in each province and territory to help families access information about their missing and loved ones from multiple government sources. FILUs are delivered through victim services and are all located in Indigenous community organization. We received our funding from Justice Canada as part of the federal victim strategy, and Justice Canada is now providing our funding to provide supports until March 31st of 2023. Just a little overview here is I'm going to touch on the National Inquiry, the Federal Pathway, the Indigenous Justice Division, FILU services. I am going to do a screening of Audrey's story. We'll do a quick rounding and I'll have my contact information and if there's any questions or answers as well. So a little bit that was probably already spoken to earlier this week regarding the National Inquiry into MMIWG. So in June of 2019, the National Inquiry into Missing, Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls released this final report. It is called Reclaim Power in Place. This report included 231 calls to justice to address the systematic racism and colonial violence for Indigenous women and girls that they've faced for decades. And there's clear steps how Canadians can be part of that change. Within there as well, a lot of debate about the whole tragedy. And RCMP, as you're aware, in 2014, they conducted an operational interview of homicides and unsolved people's missing in cases from 1980 to 2012. And the review found that there was 1,181 missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls in this period. And then NWAC, the National Women's Association, has stated there was more, closer than 4,000 that had been wrongly reported as accident suicides as well. With RCMP and then getting all the stats, that the information was probably not received with all that included with NWAC and all that. And just according to Stats Canada, Indigenous women are 3 times more likely than a non-Indigenous woman to be a victim of sexual assault as well. So we know that these figures are very underreported against violence against Indigenous women and girls. So with that being said, I know that the federal pathway has been talked about as well. So on June 3rd of 2021, the release of the 2021 Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, 2S LGBTQIA plus people from the National Action Plan Ending Violence Against Indigenous Women and Girls and 2S LGBTQIA people as well. The federal pathway is, part of the larger action plan as well. And with that being said, the National Action Plan was centered, around the National Family Survivor Circle as well, and also co-developed by representatives of First Nations, Inuit, Métis, Indigenous grassroots organization, Indigenous provincial and territorial governments, and Indigenous urban and 2S LGBTQI plus leaders. The Government of Canada's contribution to the National Action Plan and the commitments to, again, end violence against Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, which is 2 SLGBTQIA plus people. So with that being said, the federal pathway is released. So this is what the document looks like as well if you do decide to Google it and to see a little bit more of what it is. So with that being said, as I continue with the sacred work as well in supporting impacted families, I really would like to take this opportunity, this virtual gathering, to remind everyone here that government agencies, institutions, and organizations all have an obligation to act on the 231 calls for justice, including what is outlined in the federal pathway and the national action plan. And there has been a lot of renewed conversation about reconciliation across Canada this year, but it just can't be conversation. It has to be action orientated as well, with long-term commitments that will also ensure Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQI people exist in a world that is safe and free from harm. So again, FILU, the Family Information Liaison Unit, we are supported by the Indigenous Justice Division. We have Marian Jocko. She's our Acting Assistant Deputy of Attorney General. And with that, the Indigenous Justice Division is first and the only division of a kind across this country that is mostly of Indigenous staff that have lived in professional experience in frontline services with Indigenous clients. The Indigenous Justice Division was also addressed with the crisis in the justice system, as there was overrepresentation of Indigenous people, and to really foster better relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities and working towards reconciliation. So with that being said, in 2011, the Honorable Frank Lababuchi was appointed to the Order of Council to conduct a review to make recommendations. And it was noted in Ontario's justice system, there was a crisis concerning First Nations people who were overrepresented in the prison and participating in juries. So Honorable Frank Lababuchi shared there were 17 recommendations that he really urgently wanted to implement in order to get First Nations involved in court processes and also sitting in juries. At that time, the lead for Ontario's response was the Assistant Deputy Attorney General for Indigenous Justice Division was Kimberly Murray, who is now on a leave, and she's also the executive lead with the Survivor Secretary's Office. Again, the Indigenous Justice Division, provides legal and program advice to the Attorney General. It also leads and oversees the development of new programs and also supports Aboriginal people in the justice system. The Indigenous Justice Division also acts as the ministry's primary contact for Aboriginal leaders, partners, stakeholders as well. So with the Family Information Liaison Unit, that's known as FILUs, and I know in some provinces and territories they call them FILUs, so you may hear FILUs or FILUs. Our FILU staff are of Indigenous ancestry, we're knowledgeable, we're culturally competent, and we respond to the needs of our family members that we serve. Again, we are supported by the Indigenous Justice Division, and we have extensive experience in providing cultural competent services and training in Indigenous justice issues and working with a wide range of Indigenous political and community organizations. Again, Family Information Liaison Unit, we are a trauma-informed approach, and we use a commitment to do no further harm and always acknowledge spirit first. FILUs also have a benefit of being set up in Indigenous organizations as well. Even though we are public servants, we do have access to information quicker and become easily part of the justice sector as well. We do have staff that are located in these locations. So myself, I'm located here in Swakamuck, that's known as Sudbury, and my office is located at Shkakmuck Health Center. We do have an office at Nokiwin Tribal Council, Ikwewuk, and Sioux Lookout, and we'll be opening an office in Ottawa shortly as well. How are families, referred to access our services and what we do? Anybody can access FILU services. I will provide our 1-800 number at the end of the presentation as well. You can contact our office. If not, if you're working with other agencies, they can provide a referral with us as well, and then we contact you. The core work of FILU really involves, facilitating family circles, where families really hear information from institution partners regarding information about their loved one. So this could be information again from the coroner, police, Crown's attorneys, court proceedings, forensic pathologists, child welfare, or other information from other institutions. FILUs intended to be a one-stop information service to families wherever possible. Again, it's really looking at case-specific information, working with families on what they are requesting. Again, what the Family Information Liaison Unit does is we facilitate, we connect, and we collaborate. When I talk about facilitation, what is that case-specific information the family is requesting? And I find a lot of families really want to understand how a police may have handled their investigation. And from there, as workers, we really, work with families, build that rapport and that trust. What is it that they're looking for? if it's from a police investigation, if it's from a coroner's report, where a coroner provides that information about the cause of death, what's in a toxicology report, and moving forward from there. We also connect families to what the families are looking for. If it's using Indigenous knowledge keepers, counseling services, having priests that they are working with as well. We really connect with families and to see what is it the families need. We also collaborate with other provinces and territories as well, and to get the information that families are looking for. So here is a picture of what a family circle may look like. I know that our unit had just facilitated a family meeting within a community, providing social distancing and, acknowledging the community as well and informing, the chief that we're going into the community and what the purpose was. So really, our FILU team really facilitates opportunities for family members to move forward on their healing journey. We work with families in coping with their grief and trauma on their loss by organizing family gatherings, ceremonies, facilitating connections with elders, counseling services, or other local Indigenous and non-Indigenous community partners as well. FILU really supports families, and we really sit with the subject experts. When I say subject experts, again, that's with the coroner or the coroner's office, or with the police, or is it with crown attorneys? They provide that opportunity as well for families, to ask questions face to face. And, some of the information can be very traumatizing to hear for the first time, but this is why our meetings are always designed, for a family first approach, and always working, with a primary family contact, having a secondary contact, and then really trying to see if there's other family members, that want to attend a family gathering. This work is very, very sacred as well, and really honoring, the loved ones in the spirit as well. And always acknowledging that. So really, preparing, for a family circle, again, FILUs are very trauma informed. We want to really have a person centered focus approach, always knowing that having that safety is so essential as well, and being safe of that information. Family circles are not like 20 minutes. They're not an hour. There's usually, we have like a sort of a time frame of an agenda, but it's usually, not followed. Just give that time for families to process the information that they are receiving. There's always breaks. There's meals provided as well. And we also have ensure that there's, again, more trauma support that are present during a family meeting, for families to debrief as well. So a little bit about family circles. It almost has like a restorative nature of processes. We're sitting, in a circle with families, having a police officer, really to see family members as well. Some of our files or information that families are receiving, it could be very historical as well. We always try and ensure to have, the police officer or detective that was present during the individual's lost one. There's times when, again, like I mentioned, if there's a historical file, they will have the police from that agency attend and to provide that information as well. And, really ensuring that police really listen, to what families are being said, and there's times, and we know that, policing wasn't the greatest as well. It's 2021, and, we're really holding, police again and other agencies more accountable and providing information to our families. And I think I just wanted to share is, one thing that Justice, St. Clair always spoke about reconciliation, that there always has to be acknowledgement in the truth, in the acknowledgement for a role for institutions and the harm, that is really perpetrated to families as well moving forward. A little bit about what we do at the Family Information Liaison unit that we provide, but is not limited to, is if families are impacted by human trafficking and they need that support, we can help with that navigation, providing, referrals again to counseling, trauma specialists. It's what the family is looking for, and we navigate that process as well. If there is assistance that need for any kind of compensation, there's victim compensation, homicide compensation, and also referrals to Corrections Canada, especially if there has been a conviction, and offering that support of how to navigate that information about the offender's application and how to register. We always know that, translation is very important as well. And, when we speak from our heart, I always reflect myself, like I'm not Cree. So, and I always, if I'm working with families, that are Cree or Mohawk as well, translation is important. And for them, to have that offered and that translation can be provided. Our office does provide independent legal advice referrals as well. Again, we're not lawyers at all, but we can provide a referral for that. We also, again, can assist families in locating their loved ones' burial sites, helping with missing people's reports. They need assistance with housing referrals, traditional cultural supports, feasting, and releasing ceremonies or supporting a memorial vigil. We don't do cold calls as well, so families, do access our services on a voluntary basis. It's very vital to build, that relationship as well with other agencies to really promote what FILU can do as well. And if that's with police agencies, victim services, really, trying to make sure that FILU is a centralized services. And I know many people are not aware of FILU as well. And, that's pretty shocking. I think we need to do more promotion as well, but also be out there. And I know our team is very small, but this work that we do is very sacred. And it's always an honor to work with families as well moving forward. Our staff do travel to meet with families in their home communities as well to gather information. If not, we can do things through Zoom and that technology, but I know some northern communities don't have that access, and really respecting each territory on, their COVID protocols as well. With that, our doors opened on April 1st of 2017. We want to build that capacity to serve families as well with our services. Again, we do work cross jurisdictionally with other FILUs in the province and territories. And some of our work, that FILU that we do here, is we had some of our family members had their loved ones filed reclassified from an accident to an undetermined. When I say that, the only person that can change classification and death is a coroner. So when we watch a little bit of Audrey's story, you'll hear a little bit more of that reclassification with the Chief Coroner of Ontario. Also, some of our filers do sit on various prevention committees as well within our area and jurisdiction that we do cover. We know that more work, needs to be done. We know that there's a lack of working with Indigenous victim services, even for them to provide referrals to our families as well. We know that there's a lack of housing, and especially in high risk situations too, and really finding that support to help families relocate, for safety reasons. There's also a gap in specialized services to victims of human trafficking. I know that just recently, again, there's been another announcement for more resources and dollars set place in for victims for human trafficking. And again, there's like a lack of mental health supports in communities as well, especially depending on where they are. There's such a high turnover as well of trying to access mental health services and moving forward on healing. And there's not enough support in providing, to the young children, that have been impacted by MMIWG, 2SLGBTQI plus. Those young ones are left behind as well. And just knowing that there's going to be a time as well when they're going to ask those questions of what has happened to their loved one. Shared a little bit about what the Family Information Liaison Unit does. Is there any questions at all?
We do have questions. Folks were wondering how many families have you supported so far? Kind of your general stats about the program.
So right now, I think there was over 90 families that we have supported. And I know during COVID, it was a little bit of a stop as well, right? It was just really trying to navigate and to reach out to families and communities as well. So we weren't really entering a lot of communities. So I think there's probably over 90, like I know family meetings that we have facilitated. Just lately, I've been getting numerous responses as well for our services. I hope that helps. I see another comment there about the video. If you can get a copy of the video, my apologies. No one can get a copy of the video. Again, we're very trauma informed as well. We do like to ensure that that we have support, health support when we do air it, and also to honor the family as well, because we always inform the family that that we are sharing their story again, and Audrey's story, and Audrey's spirit as well. And if you ever have any information, again, that file has been reopened, and you can just call Crime Stoppers as well with that information with the Ontario Provincial Police.
Awesome. We do have another question. Do you offer family circle gatherings for the offender's family?
Yeah, that could happen as well. If family can reach out, we can, discuss that. Again, I could be reached, but we do have a 1-800 number, 1-844-888-8610. I know that listing this morning, I think there was an individual that was inquiring about some services. She would like to reach out to me directly. Again, the 1-800 number is the best way to get a hold of us. Again, we do have 4 offices again in Ontario. I know that some of our people are not traveling as well. They do have the capability of doing, a Zoom virtual call that can be facilitated as well.
I know that so many families have relied on the FILU so many of kind of the older programs have been time limited or very narrow. Just wondering, how long, what kind of relationship develop with families? How long do you spend with them? Is there a time limit to families being able to access your supports?
Again, building that relationship is really vital and trusting, right? And I knew with technology, it can be very different, right? There was times there was no travel, now there's travel, and really following restrictions and guidelines. So again, it's always up to the individual and where the individual is at. I know there's times, again, we'd be ready to have a family meeting and have it all in queue and ready. And then the family's not ready. Really respect the family's decision as well, and we always wait for the family, to reach out when they are ready. There's times where, again, family meetings can happen very quickly as well too, but it does take time, especially gathering a coroner's report if it's a recent death. It does take about sometimes 6 to 8 months to get that coroner's report, especially with the toxicology, and having that information readily available as well, and ensuring, who are the supports that the family would like to attend as well. It's always nice to have a big family meeting with other family members. I know I have facilitated a family meeting with just one family member as well too. So it always goes back to the family, or we might have to have two different family meetings within that family unit. Again, because there could be circumstances. Really honored to facilitate family meetings because, especially with historical files, families do not talk and they haven't spoken in a while because that grief that was carried in that stories, the family's not knowing the truth, right? And hearing someone may have some knowledge here or some have knowledge there, right? And again, with that story, when we just listened to Audrey's story, all that information that was brought forward, really, it was reclassified to an undetermined death as well. So again, we're here to support families moving forward. And like I said, we do work cross jurisdictionally with other FILUs. I know I've worked very closely with my other colleagues in British Columbia and Manitoba and then Nova Scotia, right? And really facilitating those meetings with their support as well.
How do folks share information? Are there pamphlets? Are there links that they should have, posters? And do they have to order them online? Anything like that?
So if you could directly reach out to me, I can put my email in the chat right now. I can mail things to individuals. Yeah, we can also do community presentations within your community as well. And if it's a virtual presentation, that can be facilitated as well, or we can come into the community to offer that, especially for, like service providers within. And then we usually like to branch out to do if it's for community as well. So there's always various options to really support, the work that we do and to ensure that, families get that information in a very trauma-informed way. And I think so I seen a question about no Kiwin. Presently, that position is going to be filled very shortly, so there will be an announcement. But if in the meantime, if you do want to contact, just contact a 1-800 number, and then I could get you with that service provider as well. Do other province and territories have similar services? So I just see that other question. So I know Ontario is a very unique how we are set up. We are housed with the Ministry of Attorney General, right? But within where we are housed, we are also, our units are in Indigenous health access units. So we're not set up as other FILUs in the province and territories. Some of them are set up in victim service models. We know that does not work for our people, especially going into a police station, going into victim services as well. That does not work. So yeah, that's why we are set up in like Indigenous organizations. And again, I'm set up at Shkakmakwe Health Center. We have Nokiwan Tribal Council, Ikwewok, and we're just still looking for that place in Ottawa right now. And that announcement will be made soon as well. So every unit is set up very differently. And here in Ontario, we do offer services again for the two-spirited men and boys, and other provinces don't. When we do facilitate a family meeting as well, and I think you've seen a picture there of how the tables were set up. We always try to make it very inclusive, right? Very welcoming as well. And then I always discuss, with families, how do you want the meeting to happen, right? It's still very family centered. And usually, the next day families, we have the discussion about, having a releasing ceremony, having a ceremony again, to celebrate and honor, the loved ones. So, giving that back to the families of what that looks like and supporting the families as well is very, very important. And I know just recently I facilitated two meetings, and it was very difficult during COVID as well because, every area was very different and jurisdiction as well. But it was very honored we were able to do that for the family. And there's times when we have a family meeting that there's not enough information that was provided. And again, if it's other agencies or police that have to go back and gather more information, we will hold another meeting, for a follow up of what is required as well. So I just wanted to share that because every situation is unique. Each family meeting is not always set up the way, again, how that picture is that I showed you. But again, we really follow the family's lead of who needs to be there and their supports as well.
Again, thank you, Tanya, for coming and sharing all that information with everyone.